Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Wacky Wonderful Show. I'm Joe.
I'm Wyatt.
Hi. How's it going, everybody? We're here to talk about Star Wars once again.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking forward to your content?
Yeah.
That's coming out not too long from now.
It should be... it's definitely going to be a shorter video because I don't have as much stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But we're just going to be exploring a little bit into, some of the ideas of, what makes Star Wars popular today.
Yeah,
So.
Why is it still so popular? Why do people still resonate with it? I mean, it's been going on for so long. Why is it such a big thing?
Yeah.
And I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it. I want to say at the end of this, we're going to get into some of our thoughts about how Book of Boba Fett ended.
Yeah.
For sure, because it's something that this seems like a good place to talk about it. So, but as far as this goes, I was doing some deep study into the Star Wars technology and realized the technology used in the old days and then what they're using today is so vastly different. That might be a very long video. And it's a lot of research, if I'm being honest.
Oh, yeah.
And so if we're not getting paid to do this yet, I'm like, I'll give you samples. How about that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology used to film The Mandalorian and the whole, what they refer to as the volume, the LED technology, and even hear a little bit about something Greg Fraser has to say about the future of filmmaking and this new tech being made for it. But what was your thoughts when you first heard about this tech?
I was pretty amazed.
Yeah.
So when I first saw it, it was probably like a behind the scenes for the Mandalorian thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're using these big LED walls instead of actually going out into an environment somewhere. And then I was watching something on YouTube. Who is it by? The Corridor.
Okay.
The Corridor guys. They were doing a visual VFX review of, something in movies and talking about how, the engines that they're using for gaming.
Yeah.
That's what they're using for the Mandalorian screen stuff.
Yeah.
And they're saying that it's so hyper detailed that all you have to do is create a world or an area and then project it onto these screens. That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me.
Which a lot of times they actually, like, the whole idea of projecting an image has been going on for all of cinema as long as cinema, because projectors were literally created at the same time the film camera was. You can project an image. So a lot of times in the old films, they're in a car.
Yeah.
They got the background of the street just bouncing up and down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the same concept. And they've used that so many times in more advanced ways. I know Oblivion with Tom Cruise actually used a version of this LED technology.
Oh, did they really?
But it wasn't crafted the same way.
Okay.
So it was like one scene, I don't even remember the scene exactly, but it's like he's in this, I don't know, I think it's like some kind of, I'm trying to remember what the environment looks like. He's walking on like this catwalk. Yeah. And it looks like there's this orange glowing environment around him. And so that orange environment is LED technology. However, when it comes to filming it, that was very large scale. So they just built like, a basic animation and projected it up there, and they just chose the cameras. This is getting a lot more detailed because every scene is incorporating this tech into it, and every detail as far as camera perspective is being thought about. And so this is something that's truly going to innovate the space in a major way. Yeah. I think every major cinema city like Atlanta, New York, not just LA, they're going to have multiple studios with this technology.
Oh, absolutely.
Because this is going to be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be sci-fi. This could be anything. We could be like, even for pickups, imagine this. You actually went out and filmed something for Dune, and you can't go back to Africa or wherever they were filming in. to film it. So they're like, we'll just come to LA for an afternoon. We'll put on your makeup, Tim, and we just need a couple close-ups, and we just used Unreal Engine to recreate the environment, and we're just going to put it up on the wall behind you. We'll be fine. So like even after production, all of the pickups they usually need for a movie to be completed, all of that can be done in an environment like this.
And I think one of the most beautiful things about it is that you don't have to, you don't have to really think about the lighting as much, especially because if you're using LED screens and you're, the environment is on the LED screens. In the environment, you have a sun, you have clouds, you have that sun reflecting off of rocks. Because if it's LED, that's all of that's going to be reflecting onto your characters.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to think about, how is the light from the sun that's covered in clouds going to reflect on the Mandalorian's armor.
You don't have to think about
You don't even have to think about that. And it also gives you perfect frame of reference for lighting when you're doing VFX, like CGI stuff.
Yes,
it's like,
absolutely.
Here's what it looks like on his armor. Here's what it needs to look like on this CG robot.
Exactly.
Stuff.
I mean, it's incredible. The motivational lighting is awesome too, because you're like, okay, yeah, so we have a couple lights that we've attached to, close to the ceiling out of frame, and we know that the design of the background has like the whole scene with Ahsoka in Mandalorian. I think it was season 1?
Season 2,
where she does the whole samurai fight scene or whatever by those pools of water. So they made the pools of water, they made the bridge, but the entire environment around them is like a night scene. It's animated. There's a lot of different light sources.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, so the main light source is probably maybe the moon. And so you just have to have a nice soft glow that's kind of coming from the direction that the screen's literally telling you where it's coming from. And then you might have a couple little lanterns here and there. And it's like, okay, just throw a little touch of this yellow light in that direction.
But then, of course, something that they didn't do in the old movies, they didn't do in the prequels, is that lightsabers are light sabers. They emit light. And so the props that she's using are actual, to scale sabers that emit a glow.
Yes.
So you can see it reflected on her face. You can see it reflected on her opponent and the environment around them.
Yes.
So you've got a bunch of stuff going on with light. And,
all of this is done before they start recording.
Yeah.
Like, in camera, this is the coolest thing. Greg Fraser literally said, it's so interesting. Literally in camera, you just throw it on a timeline, edit it together, and it's almost done.
Yeah. Well, it's even if we're going into the sequel movies, when you think about that scene in the first one, what was the first one called? The Force Awakens?
Yeah.
When they're fighting in the woods, that was like one of the first times that they were using the lightsabers were actually projecting light onto the characters, and so it felt kind of visceral.
It did feel visceral
because when they light up the lightsabers and it you see the glow on their face. That's some good stuff.
It's crazy. Imagine, I don't know if they were using this tech exactly, but imagine the big in episode 3. So it's this fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
in the lava world or whatever. Mustafar. Imagine if they had like that detailed. Imagine how it wouldn't feel as smooth. It would feel so much more visceral and grungy and intense.
Yeah.
To see that transformation in that fight from Anakin, and instead of it all just being like, oh, well, we're on these moving platforms in a green room. That's a little bit of a bummer, but man, am I excited for the future of filmmaking.
Me too.
What are you to give a little teaser, what do you think for your segment? To give me a teaser, what might be in a word the reason, would you say, that Star Wars is still so popular today?
One word. What is the one word that I would use? Probably see, when I write these, I write them with several points.
Yeah.
So I can't really sum it up into one word, but I would say I can give you 3 words.
Give me 3 words.
Kind of following.
Yeah, go
ahead. I would say the most important parts are idea, the idea of Star Wars, drama,
okay,
and hope.
Hope. That's great.
So you're gonna have to watch that.
Yeah, that's beautiful, actually.
And I think I had a 4th one, and I ended up deleting it. But so we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, man. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, and we'll be back at the end to talk a little bit about how the Book of Boba Fett ended, what we're feeling about the storytelling of Star Wars, but let's get into the other content. See you at the end of the video. Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. In this video, I'm going to be answering the question how The Mandalorian was filmed, both Season 1 and Season 2. Well, to give it to you, it's called stagecraft. There's your answer. Now, if you want to get into a little bit more about what it is that stagecraft is, I'm going to help you understand it. And it's super interesting technology. It's kind of the future of filmmaking in a lot of ways. And we'll actually close out this segment with a word from Greg Fraser, who is the DP on the first season of Mandalorian, and he's kind of the first DP to use this new technology. He's one of them, but it's super interesting tech. It's the future of filmmaking, so I'm going to try to help us all wrap our minds around this idea. To get started, it first was actually Jon Favreau's vision, because he knew, well, everybody knew that if you were to create a series for Star Wars, a live action Star Wars, really any super fantasy or complex story, it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of money, and a lot of times hiccups and troubleshooting of weather and travel, and all of that is a real headache when it comes to video production. And so he had a vision that if we could set up a stage to be almost the one-stop shop for our entire set, our entire production, well, that will actually allow us to create these tremendous stories on a big scale. And so that's exactly what they did. So Jon Favreau had this vision, and he worked with people at Unreal Engine and a bunch of other really smart people to create this realistic video game technology world inside of something called the volume. Now, let me explain what the volume is. Volume is a almost circle of an LED wall on the ceiling and on the walls. The volume is the room that is surrounded by these LED walls. Now, LED technology has gotten better in even just the past 5 years. I remember a little bit before the clip we're going to watch with Greg Fraser, he actually talks about we are able to do this today because even 5 years ago, LED technology wasn't good enough to be able to create something like this, but now it is. And so because that is the case, they are able to create this room that essentially is displaying an image for you. It can be a video image or a picture or whatever you have, and they're using Unreal Engine, this video game technology, to design the world that they are going to be putting up on these screens. So what they did is they used Unreal Engine to create a realistic image that is probably about 360 degrees, and they display it onto the walls and the ceiling of this world. So kind of like a VR headset, you can look around and see everything in your environment. That's exactly what they did, but on these LED walls. It's super cool because the order of production is usually, pre-production and then production and post-production. And so all of the animation, the video effects, the visual effects, all of that comes after production. But this kind of actually reverses the order to where you're saying, Well, our final product is going to kind of be in camera for the most part, except for a few extras they put in there. So really, it's reversing the order and saying that the video effects needs to come before they actually hit record on the camera, so that the environment has all of the droids, the background, the ships flying around that you need in order to make this atmosphere doable. Because of this allowed like teams of people to literally be on set in the stage and to say, well, the color is a little off with the entire environment. It's a little, maybe say it's a little too cool, it's a little too blue, and we need to make it match a little bit more green. Well, they are literally able to, in real time, before in like 5 minutes, shift the color in the entire environment to make it match what they need. It goes the same with brightness or contrast, and even they were able to take elements. So if there's like a weird tree or a building positioned in a weird place that's going to mess with the camera or the environment, they could actually take it or move it over a little bit. It's super cool. It's literally designing a video game for cinema. This is incredible for the actors because it actually allows the actors to know the environment they're in. Plus, it allows all of the light and the colors to leak onto the set and the actors themselves. We know the Mandalorian suit is reflective. Everything about it is reflective. And so if you were to shoot that on a green screen or a blue screen, well, you would be literally reflecting that screen that's behind you. So what they needed is they needed to in camera be able to make this character's suit be reflective of the environment. So that's super helpful because you don't have to deal with all of this, try to get all the green out of the image. You actually can just leave the image as it is because it was already filmed perfectly, and the colors and everything looks so natural because the environment that's surrounding them is the correct environment with the correct lighting, exposure, and color. One step they actually had to be very innovative with was camera perspective. Now, when you're wearing a VR headset, everything's just wide and you can look around, and so it's more rudimentary. But with this, they're filming, they're using cameras, so you have the issue of perspective and depth that you actually have to deal with in the environment. It's not as simple as just saying throw up screens and the camera will make it look great. No, sometimes you actually need your environment to move according to how zoomed in the camera is to your character, because the lens perspective changes everything in the image. The foreground, the background, even the background that's miles away, if you're able to see that, it changes all of that. So they actually had to attach almost like a sensor to see what the camera is seeing on the back wall, the portion of the back wall it's seeing, and move around according to where the camera's pointing to adjust for that zoom, perspective, depth needed for their image. I remember in some interviews, a lot of actors said it was a bit trippy because the environment looks so realistic, but then they would see, a camera square moving around on the LED wall to force the perspective needed for that shot. So it's cool because everything works together, but you still, it feels like you're in the environment, but you still have the needed groundwork for the camera to look right, for everything to work together like a dance so that the image looks correct and convincing. Let me move on to kind of what we're seeing in camera and the benefits and how it affects each other. So when it comes to the acting, most of all of The Mandalorian for both Season 1 and Season 2, most of it is filmed in the volume. So all of the actors interacting, basic, movements, it's all inside of this LED volume world. I'm going to call something fast action for the need to describe it. Basically, so if you have characters running through the desert, that's just a really quick shot, and a lot of visual effects are going to be needed to add to that shot. Sometimes they did use blue screen for fast action, for maybe a battle sequence or something of that nature. They used blue screen there. They also sometimes made the entire image animation. It could be all designed, and just like we've seen for years with Hollywood, just the entire image is animated. That's like with spaceships or, small speeder bike chases, those kind of things. Like the whole image is animated as opposed to part animation and part live filming. And sometimes they had a mix of the two. So it's kind of like they had to look at the scenes and say, what do we need for this scene and how are we going to create it effectively? Can it be filmed in the volume? And if not, we're going to animate it, or maybe we require a blue screen because there's a lot of people and we have to, make it work for our schedule, for our time, and get the shot that we need. Let me distinguish between something I'm calling the background and the foreground because it helps me describe a little bit better to you. So the background is going to be kind of like physical, on the floor, inside the volume, set design pieces, and then also a little bit into the LED wall that kind of hides where the line is, where the wall starts and the actual physical set design starts. They had to kind of hide that. And so when I'm talking about the background, I'm talking about like what is behind the actors or what is in the scene that's partly real and partly on the wall right behind them. There's a couple ways they went about this. A lot of times these scenes were maybe just completely animated and then added the physical set design around them. Maybe like they have to have a pillar and maybe like a side wall next to the character, and then everything behind them can be on the LED screens. But sometimes they actually did this occasionally. They would make miniatures of the set that they want in the background, and they would 3D scan those miniatures and add them to the video backdrop for the LED wall. So they actually physically built them, just miniatures, and then blew them up to the appropriate scale for the LED wall. So it does do a super good job at just hiding where that distinguishing wall and where the wall hits the floor and all of that. So it gets very technical when you think about it, and even what's necessary scene to scene. I think it's super creative. I think if you're working in this environment, you're not only working with some of the most advanced technology for cinema, but it's also every day you have to troubleshoot creatively to make this style of filmmaking work for your scene, make it convincing, and at the same time make it beautiful. Another part of the background is a lot of it's just animated. The cool thing I found out is they actually made miniatures of droids and did motion capture on a green screen for those droids and then added them to the video wall not because they had to, but because it actually adds that classic beloved Star Wars aesthetic that we've seen from the old films, when most of the movement had to be motion capture or puppeted, essentially. So it makes you feel like you're inside the Star Wars universe, even though that's an unnecessary step. The aesthetic is super important, and that's something that creatives were able to think around and be like, how do we make this feel like Star Wars? Let's incorporate some out-of-date tricks, add them to the modern technology and the modern processes we have today. So that was super cool. And then the foreground, I want to talk about what's super off. Like if they're outside and not in like a small room, then you could sometimes see for miles, especially some of those scenes on Tatooine. So it was super important that the foreground is also convincing. Now that foreground basically is all animated because it's so distant in Unreal Engine, just like a lot of the other bits. But the foreground is important because you might have a spaceship flying up, so it can't just be an image. It also has to be a 3D image. Like I said earlier, the camera perspective, even mountains miles away, if you move the camera a certain way, you're getting a new perspective, even if it's slightly, on that distant mountain or on that distant character. And so you have to account for that in this 3D space and design digitally the foreground to be able to be manipulated accordingly. So the way I found benefit is thinking you have the physical set design on the floor with the actors. Then you have the wall, and right on the wall that's closest to the actors, you have background, more set design that looks like it's incorporated in with the physical set design. And then you have the foreground, either movement with droids or ships or whatever. And you have even the environment if you're outside or in like a big spaceship hangar or whatever. You have all of these elements working together. Now, in my opinion, this technology is exciting. Some filmmaking purists might disagree and say, no, it's not the real thing. We need to actually go and capture these images as raw as possible, I guess, and there's beauty in that. There is some beauty to having that puristic mindset, but when it comes to being able to tell incredibly cool stories and the financial ability to do so, this technology has to be incorporated. And in my opinion, it's so much better than anything we have with green screen, blue screen, any kind of keying out of something to make it work. This is so much better. It's so much more effective, and it allows the creativity to just blow the ceiling off and shoot for the stars. And that's literally what they did in Star Wars. Oh my gosh. I want to end real quick with the soundbite from Greg Fraser from a podcast he did. It was a super interesting moment that I heard him say, and so let's go ahead and listen to it right now.
LED technology, real-time gaming engine, this has a lot of potential in the future. And I think that people see the making of Mandalorian, and I love when people see it and they have their minds blown, because that was the intention. Mm-hmm. But I'm already in like version 4 in my brain, like where, you know, you've got movable flats and you've got stages that are maneuverable, and like create a whole range of set pieces with the technology. I think's totally viable, and I would say watch this space, because it's only going to get more interesting.
Indeed, we will definitely keep our eyes on this space to see what is innovating in the whole volume LED wall world for cinema. It's super exciting. I'm very looking forward to seeing what creators like himself and Jon Favreau and all of these extremely creative and smart people can think up and incorporate into their storytelling world. So I hope this was helpful for you. I hope that this gets you excited about the future of filmmaking and storytelling. And if you want to, you know, watch more videos like this or keep up with cool technology and news and techniques in filmmaking, well, I ask you that you would subscribe to the channel, and you can see the new content that I myself or my friend Wyatt or me, my friend, and my brother talk about on the podcast. We talk about storytelling, filmmaking. We do movie commentaries on this channel. So thanks so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and give the video a like. Tell me in the comments if you learned something or if there's something in this world of Star Wars technology for filmmaking that you would like me to talk on and to educate myself on a little bit in the process. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Welcome back to the studio. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking a little bit about Star Wars. You know, I was going through a couple of different paths, really just kind of looking for the video I wanted to do about Star Wars. There's so much. So as I was searching, I kept having this thought of why Star Wars is still so popular in our day and age. Why are we still making movies? Why are we still making TV shows? Why are we still consuming Star Wars content? And now there's a lot of things that we could attribute to this success, and that we could attribute to why people keep going back to this series. But I'm going to be looking at it more through the lens of some of the story elements, kind of give my perspective on some of the big key things of what it is in the Star Wars storytelling that keeps people coming back. I mean, there's space and spaceships and technology and lightsabers and the Force, but there's some really big story elements that I just want to touch on in today's video to kind of answer why it's so popular. So first, we're going to look at the fact that it's a simple concept. This is a simple idea. It seems like a lot more, especially if you look at it nowadays, looking back on how much Star Wars stuff there is. But it really, in the beginning, was just a simple adventure story with a kid who discovers a secret, goes on an adventure with an old wizard, meets a ragtag group of people in the galaxy, and they just have to go on this mission to try and stop the villains from destroying worlds. And they're sort of swept away onto this mission. Luke Skywalker is it's that adventure he was looking for. In the end, it wasn't exactly what he was expecting. He meets these people in the galaxy, Chewie and Han and Leia, Obi-Wan. Han especially, he's not like a good person, but he's pretty decent. And, he doesn't always do what Luke kind of would expect somebody to do. He doesn't always do the honorable thing unless he's pressured into it. And then they get this group together, and now they're going up against this masked, sword-wielding wizard, the opposition of Obi-Wan. Just this classic adventure story. Young kid meets wizard, goes on an adventure, fights dark wizard in space. The concept and the ideas, saying that they're simple isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing because it lends itself so well to showing off the galaxy, showing off the space fights and the spaceships, showing off everything that is going on in this empire. The next kind of story thing, and I think this one's really pivotal for why people love Star Wars and still love Star Wars, is that it is dramatic. It is fun. Yeah, and it's space, and there's all these crazy things like the Force and the lightsabers and the blasters. But this really is a drama story. It's about people, and people are dramatic. Some of the best things about Star Wars are its dramatic moments. When we see Han being lowered into the carbonite and getting frozen, into the stasis, that's an emotional moment. And then later in that same movie, we see Darth Vader reveal to Luke Skywalker that, no, he didn't kill his father. He is his father. Darth Vader picking up Palpatine and throwing him down into that abyss. Just these dramatic moments throughout Star Wars. Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fighting these old enemies, fighting once more. And that carries through the series, even going into the prequels. And I mean, say what you will about the prequels, but the prequels have those dramatic moments. Qui-Gon Jinn being killed by Darth Maul and Obi-Wan avenging him. Anakin killing all the Tusken Raiders. These are dramatic beats that the story hits that people are looking for and that people keep coming back for. We see it in The Mandalorian. We see it in Boba Fett. We see it in the cartoons, Star Wars The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels. They keep coming back to these dramatic moments. Really kind of harkens back to that kind of cheesy space opera aesthetic almost. The moment in Revenge of the Sith where Anakin and Obi-Wan have their fight, and they have just this incredibly emotional moment after Obi-Wan cuts up Anakin, just where he's expressing all of the frustration that he feels over the portrayal. It's those dramatic moments that keep us coming back. And Boba Fett, I have my opinion of Boba Fett. I'm sure you guys have your opinion of Boba Fett, but there were some really good moments, those dramatic moments in the Book of Boba Fett with Cad Bane, with Grogu and Luke Skywalker. Some really good moments in there. And then kind of rounding it out of things that people just keep coming back for. I might get a little bit sappy in this part of the video, but Star Wars really showed off from the beginning, from the first 3 movies, that the villain, the one that we thought was the ultimate evil, Darth Vader, wasn't. That there was good in him. And it really kind of displays that there is hope. There's always hope for the people that you think are too far gone. There's hope for your friends. There's, Luke, people keep telling him he's going to have to kill Darth Vader. Yoda tells him he's going to kill Vader. Obi-Wan tells him he's going to kill Vader. Emperor Palpatine tells him he has to kill Vader. But he refuses, and he doesn't just refuse to kill him because he doesn't want to go over to the dark side, but he refuses to let that spark of hope that there's good in his father die. He sees it at the end when Vader is dying. He removes his mask to reveal his face just so that he can look upon his son. It's a beautiful moment, which Star Wars is full of these beautiful moments that are just going to show the viewers that in this crazy, fantastic sci-fi world, it's about people. It's about human interactions, and that what we perceive as the worst of the worst, there might still be some good in that. And it's beautiful moments like that keep you coming back. And in Mandalorian, in the Book of Boba Fett, we see that with these characters, these Mandalorians who are warlike characters. Boba Fett was a bounty hunter. The Mandalorian Din Djarin is currently a bounty hunter. To see him in his show go from doing what he does, which is kind of dark, bringing people in, killing people, to protecting something that is innocent and something that's incredibly vulnerable. And it makes him more vulnerable as well. It makes him a better character. It brings out the good in him. It's good to see that they're continuing to further this narrative that there's always hope and there's always good in these characters, even though they can live in such a dangerous galaxy in many respects. Those are just some of the things, some of the ideas, some of the story beats in Star Wars that I think people are coming back for, that I think people want to see more of. And partially, I think what's keeping this franchise alive is because, no matter what you think of the new movies or the new shows, people are coming back for those storytelling elements that we've seen executed well in the past. We've seen them executed bad, but we've also seen what Star Wars can look like when it's done really well. And I think that's why people keep coming back. If you guys enjoy the video, leave a like. Tell me what you think. Tell me kind of some of the ideas, some of the concepts that you think people are coming back for with Star Wars. Because I think it's more than just nostalgia. I think there's some really good story stuff in here that people want to see. So leave your comment, subscribe to this channel. If you want to see more from us, go over to the podcast, WiseWorks Podcast. We do longer form videos there, and we'd appreciate a like and subscribe over there as well. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.
All right.
And we're back.
And so, as we said at the top, we're going to get into our thoughts a little bit about the Book of Boba Fett. But first, I want to say this. That I think you're onto something when it comes to the hope idea.
Yeah.
You're very onto something. Because, there's a lot of different ideas around Star Wars and maybe why we like it. Mm-hmm. But I think, when you watch a film, it's a bit of a Debbie Downer. Or a series. You're like, oh, that was super artistic. Yeah, what a crazy story. I don't think I'm going to watch it ever again. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But when you see something that speaks to you, because everybody does need hope. Everybody does feel like, the Emperor is oppressing me or whatever. You know what I mean? Like Darth Vader exists in my life.
Yeah, well, everybody, I feel like, has somebody or knows somebody that, maybe according to, all of our individual circumstances, is going down a path that we feel is
hopeless.
Yeah. And isn't good for them. And that they're still in there, that person you knew. They're still in there, and you can, you just got to keep trying. Luke had to keep trying, even though everybody told him, you're going to have to kill Darth Vader.
Yeah. You're going to have to kill your daddy.
You're going to have to.
You're probably going to become evil in the process. Mm-hmm. And, you're too old.
Too old to be in the training.
Yeah.
No, he was being told conflicting things. In order to become a Jedi, he has to kill his father.
Yeah.
And then in order to truly become part of the dark side, he has to kill his father. Mm-hmm. So the only alternative was for him to not do either of those things.
Yeah.
Which was kill his father.
Yeah, that's true.
So he decided that in not killing him, he was a Jedi.
Yes.
That was, kind of, and then you see it in the early movies that even Count Dooku is still, there was still something in him that was trying to do good. In Anakin, even though he was technically evil in the third one by then, there was still something in him that was trying to save Padme.
Yeah.
And it became corrupted. And then, in the final movie, Kylo Ren is doing the same thing.
Yes.
He
killed his daddy.
He killed his dad and then tried to redeem himself as best he could.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what Star Wars has been about.
Yeah. I think you're onto something, man. I think that is very true. I think it's a beautiful concept, and that's probably why it lingers.
And in retrospect, I would have kept that fourth point.
Which was?
It was characters.
Okay.
I would have gotten a little... Yeah, I ended up taking it out because there's so many characters. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I really don't want to try to fumble through all the characters and everything each character brings.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, it's different. And so I was like, all right, this is just going to be a shorter video with these points. And that was it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Well, I think when it comes to the characters do play a big part. Even in some ways, there are so many interesting characters in Star Wars, mm-hmm. and most recently with Cad Bane, it's like, man, if I see more of him, that's good reason to just keep watching Star Wars. You know what I mean?
Well, if we're talking about the end of Boba Fett, we're not going to see any more Cad Bane.
Well, they killed him really quick.
Yeah.
Do you really think he's not coming back?
I'm sure he's not coming back. I know what that was. It was
finishing the Dave...
It was Filoni trying to finish the Cad Bane story, which is understandable. I'm glad that he finished it. I wish it had been...
a little longer.
I wish the story had lingered a little longer. Like, I wish Cad Bane had come in the third episode and lingered around for a while.
Do you really think he's dead?
I think, dude, that Boba Fett stabbed him with a 4-pronged.
But if he was wearing mithril, he'd be fine.
He wasn't wearing mithril.
He might be.
No.
Or something like it.
And my man was in his 70s.
Okay, it's okay.
I
just got to know this guy.
I felt like they missed an opportunity to kind of do the quick draw, mm-hmm. like they did in the scene that was never aired for the Clone Wars, and they missed an opportunity for there not to be a rematch between Cad Bane and Fennec Shand.
Yeah.
So,
but they also did confirm that Cobb Vanth did get killed.
He got killed?
Yeah.
No, he's alive.
He is?
Did you not watch the after credit scene?
No.
He's
okay?
He's in the Bacta tank.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, he's all right. I was actually hoping it was Cad Bane in the Bacta tank.
That would be sick.
They were zooming in on the Bacta tank. I'm like,
come on,
I knew it. Aw.
Why wouldn't he want to keep him around?
No, I know he wouldn't want to keep him around. That final episode.
I have a lot of thoughts.
I have a lot of thoughts as well. How do you want to kind of go into this without doing a whole review?
Okay, so this is how I thought the show started. Just slightly better than expectations.
Okay.
Just working its way up. Maybe a few dips here and there. Then we hit Mando and it went whoosh.
Yeah.
Then we hit Luke and it kind of went up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And Grogu and Ahsoka. And then we got to Cad Bane and it skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to this last episode. And then went all the way back down to the beginning where it started. It wasn't the worst, but gosh dang it, it did not deliver a good ending.
Well, there were 3 episodes that were directed by, I think his name is Robert Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the 3 worst of the season, and that's the the Mos Vespa gang episode.
Did he do the last one?
I think that episode where there's like the tattoo parlor guy with the blowtorch, and the last episode.
Fire his butt. Get rid of him. He did the stupidest thing in the whole seasons.
I understand the,
It looks to me like he's just trying to shoehorn in these freaking moody teenagers everywhere.
I understand it's not his fault entirely, right? We kind of gotta, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, are part of this as well as the producers and, the cast and crew. But consistently, the 3 episodes that Rodriguez directed were the worst ones. And he had really bad fadeaways and pans, where the camera pans around, and he likes to do these weird slow motion things that they don't work super well. So
I'm just incredibly disappointed that it felt like we were focused a little bit more on these moody teenagers than Cad Bane in this episode. It's like, where is your priorities here?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't really care about these. You're showing us these, and you're blue balling us with Cad.
Yeah.
And not showing us, and then all of a sudden, I guess, finishing an idea. Did we get confirmation? You said that dent in Boba Fett.
They never confirmed it in
live action.
In the live action, no. But
we all know.
But he did say something like, we gonna finish what we started or something.
He did.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of reference.
Hearing you explain that whole thing that they didn't air, or whatever that they did air, kind of.
They didn't air. They showed it at a Comic-Con type event.
That made sense when they had that duel and then the history. It actually helped me. And it does kind of make sense to where it's like Boba Fett the first time couldn't kill Cad on his own.
Yeah.
But once he was with the Sand People, once he was with, got their training, well, then he was able to use their tactics to best Cad.
I have a whole spiel about how I think the story should have been written.
Okay.
Involving Cad Bane and Boba Fett's history with him. But I think we can leave that for a full
podcast or something.
Podcast or full show review.
Okay.
So
that'd be sick. Yeah. I think the next thing on the roster, if I know, is Kenobi.
Oh yeah,
I believe
Kenobi's going to be coming out soon.
I don't know how to feel about that. They're using the same tech for Kenobi that they've used in The Mandalorian.
John Williams. John Williams coming back.
He is?
John Williams, yeah.
I didn't know that detail. I'm excited to see what is going to come out of Kenobi. And we will, I guess we'll talk about it some more then when that comes out. But I'm pretty sure that's next on the roster for Star Wars Universe, Disney Plus stuff. Any final thoughts you have about this episode before we close this one out?
Not really.
Not me either.
I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. I'm fresh out.
Well, listen, once again, we thank you for watching, and we want to ask you to subscribe. But very importantly, if you enjoy this content, you want to see it about a week early access to a lot of our content, then we want to humbly request that you consider supporting us on Patreon. That would be awesome if you are interested in doing that. And we do have benefits for the supporters on Patreon. It's not just general support, it's you get things. So definitely go check out the link in the description. And if you don't want to do that, well, we humbly ask that the least you can do is subscribe. Just stick around and hear more of our conversations about movies, filmmaking, storytelling, things of that nature. So I guess with all that said, we'll see you next week for week 3 of Star Wars.
Star Wars. Peace out.
Thank you.